Oh, is there anybody present here that wishes to address?
Thank you. Mr. Carlos Garcia.
Carlos Garcia here.
He's here.
Mr. Garcia?
Good afternoon, Carlos Garcia with the local grassroots group Rollback Tolls. I'd like to address the board today.
Do we need his address for the record, Pam?
I believe that. Would you state it for the record?
Address 12762 Southwest 116th Terrace.
Thank you.
And I'd like to speak to the board in regards to the recently completed or ongoing landscaping project on the 874 Expressway, which I travel quite a bit. And
excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, what is the protocol with respect to the minutes allowed?
He has 3 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you. The
Okay.
speaker has 3 minutes.
All right. Thank you. 3 minutes. The landscaping that's recently been planted in the 874, though it looks very nice, no one can doubt that it looks very nice.
Thank you.
My group and a lot of people that we've spoken to are concerned about the cost. When I requested a copy of what the budget was and the allocated monies for that landscaping, some people were actually quite shocked, especially at the Kendall Federation of Homeowners, to find out that so far over $3 million has been spent on landscaping on the 874, including almost $8,000 apiece for 56 medjool non-native palm trees, which are very nice, but tollpayers are asking themselves, should we be paying for $8,000 palm trees? And a lot of people have actually come to us with that, and they go, my God, look at all this landscaping. I mean, that's got to cost a mint. And I've been talking with several landscaping people, and it is very expensive. And we were quite shocked to find out that it's slightly over $3 million in landscaping so far. We're concerned about the cost and how MDX is really looking or not considering, we believe, the toll payer when it comes to expenditures like this. During a down economy, people are trying to hold on to their jobs, their houses, feed their kids, and here comes MDX planting, $3 million worth of palm trees and landscaping. On top of which, the landscaping is so bunched together that I don't know if anybody's been out there lately. It's like every possible foot of space has been used to plant a palm, a tree, a bush, or something. It's excessive. I have traveled extensively around the state, and I can honestly say there's no highway with as many trees as 874 in Kendall. I've heard a lot of talk about things that the board wants to do with customer reward programs and things like that, and where's the sense in it? That's what my group wants to know, and some of the residents in Kendall. It looks very nice, but it's excessive, and we feel that it's also a possible liability when you have over 50-foot trees in the median of a busy highway. If we were to get even a Category 1 storm, that could cause a very big liability in the travel lanes for such an important artery if we should have a hurricane that would need to be cleared quickly. But that's my comments. We've looked at the state guidelines and recommendations. For most projects, it's a 1.5 recommended budget for landscaping. By our calculations, this is slightly over 4% on 874, taking into the cost of the recent expansion. We believe it's excessive, and we'd like the board to address that and maybe speak to that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Garcia, for your presentation, and perhaps we can get an answer
I just have a bowel movement.
points.
Yes,
The Executive Director.
and Director Lurigados has the details, but Mr. Garcia is correct. If you look at the 874 project from Killian to the Turnpike, it is about 4% for landscaping. And yes, there is a 1.5% legislative rule on landscaping for work programs, and that is, it applies to the Florida Department of Transportation. We've chosen to follow that. If you look at the total construction that was set for all of 874, from the Palmetto to the Turnpike, we're investing over $220 million. when you look at all the opportunities for landscaping, we're going to be above the 1.5, but if you look at the entire work program, the 5-year work program, we are at 1.5% because there's many roadways that there's simply no opportunity to do landscaping. And that's,
Well,
and we've responded
I
like that.
think there are two issues that Mr. Garcia has brought up. One is the cost.
Yes.
And the issue is, should MDX be spending $3 million to landscape lusciously a road? And does that fit within the norm, and is that something that's prudent? And the second issue that he brought up is the question of safety, which is what happens if one of those very big palms falls into the road during a hurricane?
If one of those big palms falls during a hurricane, first of all, if there's a hurricane, Category 1, or even tropical storm winds, nobody should be driving. So if it does fall, we would have to make sure it gets moved out of the highway. That is taken into account when we plant these facilities. Number two, as far as cost, this contract was competitively procured. There was multiple bidders. The price for the material was competitively procured. So that's the answer for that.
All right, any questions from any members? Mr. Wortman.
Okay, a couple of things. When MDX was created, and when Miami-Dade County was pushing for a lot of local, input, one of the things was, I remember, landscaping. And one of the things was pushed is to have more than the state mandated minimums in response to the people living in and around the areas, and also on the roadways as traffic calming. Okay, and I think we've responded with a criteria book, I believe it's 11 by 17, that gives design characteristics and also landscaping characteristics, what we should do. And understanding what our executive director has said is that, and I remember during the ongoing procurement of the various things, there were certain opportunities where prices were lower and we were able to get more. Alfred, that is correct. We were able to get, because of what happened in the economy, some opportunities. And if, Mr. Director, if I'm correct, that what you're saying is we followed the 1.5% general guidelines, but other parts of the roadways, it's wall-to-wall asphalt, there's no room. And you basically concentrated in the areas where there was places. So in that particular area, there's more to make up for the areas where it's less. And definitely...
We have areas that there's no, we can't landscape because it's just asphalt to asphalt.
Concrete barrier walls. And the other thing, if I'm correct, I remember, Alfred, you brought this up, is that instead of the smaller trees, where you're traveling along an expressway at speed versus an arterial street, 30 miles an hour or less, that we should be aiming more toward taller ones. People see at a distance, more visual impact, less vegetation, but more large pieces. You could chime in any time on that, versus a lot of small stuff, and the amount of maintenance that they take is a little different too.
That is correct, Mr. Wortman, and we've also worked with our landscape architects to talk about grouping of trees, which Mr. Garcia mentioned, related to those trees when they're more mature in their environment. They're grouped so that they don't fall during storms, because landscape grouping, which I didn't know, I'm not a landscape architect, that's part of the design that went into the highway when it relates to...
Are there any other questions or comments?
I just, Mr. Chair, if I can, Carlos, let me ask you something, because the trees are already in, right? So we can't, take them out. But, what might be helpful is if you have some ideas in the future, we are going to continue doing projects.
Actually, I do, and I forgot to mention it.
Yeah, if you have some ideas, maybe you submit them, and maybe you could discuss on how you or your group would think maybe we should landscape it in the future.
Well, okay, that's a very good idea. You totally reminded me of a point that I forgot to bring up. Thank you. One idea that we have is that, highways need landscaping, but I know that it's been talked about here at the meetings about non-toll revenue. One idea might be to get corporations to sponsor the landscaping. Say Geico sponsor the landscaping.
We're pursuing that.
That
is a valid
that's a very valuable recommendation.
Yeah.
Because I think in the future, what we ought to do, especially during these difficult times, is set aside a specific time before we go and spend that money to see if we can get corporate sponsorship of it.
Yeah.
I think it's a very good recommendation.
Thank you. One other quick observation, according to that guideline that says the 1.5, it also recommends that native plants be used, and those medules are not native. They're North African desert palms. And I've spoken to several arborists that have concerns that they might get what's called wet foot or wet rot or something like that, where too much water accumulates at the bottom and weakens it, and it could fall over.
All right. We'll look into that, and we'll report back to you on that specific question.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. All right. Is there any